This time on Psychic Investigators. A woman fails to show up for work.
Belpri Police Department.
My wife is missing.
Her husband says she's left him. But her family doesn't buy it.
We knew something terrible was wrong.
Then a psychic sees something terrifying.
She's not missing. She's dead.
Will the police take her vision seriously?
Some people believe it, some people don't.
Can the psychic help the police solve the mystery of what happened to Jennifer McCrady? Along the Ohio River, reminders of the booming coal industry float by the town of Belpri, Ohio. It's a quiet working-class town. Families have lived here for generations. An unlikely place for the drama about to unfold with a phone call to the local police, Thursday afternoon, September 19th, 1996.
Belpri Police Department.
Hi, this is True McCrady.
Uh-huh.
My wife is missing.
I'll have an officer come in and give you a call up there and talk to you.
Okay.
The call comes from Ohio State Trooper Jack McCrady from his post in Marietta. Trooper McCrady and his wife Jennifer, a nurse, are well known around Belpri. A seemingly happy family. They have 2 small children and are very close to Jennifer's parents.
The greatest thing for Jenny was being a mom. She just dearly loved those 2 boys.
Jack McCrady is a respected state trooper with 5 years service. He was named the county's Trooper of the Year. He's also a familiar face at the Belpri Police Department. State troopers often use the office when they make arrests in the area.
When I worked at the police station, the State Highway Patrol would normally bring people in there, so I got to know Jack from coming in there with people that he's arrested or doing an accident report. They would come there and use our office.
The city of Belpri is very small, 6,000 or 7,000 people, an 11-man department. He knows everybody that works there. He was born and raised in the area.
Detective Sergeant Dave Garvey is assigned to the case. At first, the detective treats McCrady's call about his wife as routine.
Husbands and wives have problems. If any police department actively pursued every missing husband and or wife in the first 3 or 4 hours, probably wouldn't get much work done.
3 hours later, when Trooper McCrady returns home, he calls the Belpri police again. He confirms Detective Garvey's initial thoughts.
She is apparently not missing.
Okay.
She's cleaned out pretty much everything what she owned.
Okay.
Wedding rings were laying on the kitchen counter. Apparently she's all right.
But is she? When Jennifer's parents hear the news, they're shocked. Unlike the police, they refuse to believe Jack's story.
And he says, she packed her clothes and took $3,000 and left. Jenny would not leave on her own and not tell us that she was going someplace. We knew something terrible was wrong.
"12 hours later, Belpri police find Jennifer's red Blazer abandoned in the park along the Ohio River. There's no sign of the 31-year-old mother. But a detailed search turns up nothing. No blood, no purse, no sign of a struggle. It's a mystery. It's as if Jennifer McCrady just vanished into thin air. Garvey zeroes in on her husband.
All Jack was saying was that he came home from work, she's gone, I think she's with somebody else.
Garvey talks to her family, her friends, checks her bank accounts, her phone records. Nothing turns up. Jack's story about her secret lover looks shaky.
Co-workers did not believe that she was seeing anybody or had ever seen anybody at all. Her mom and dad just were emphatic that she would never, ever leave. her best friends said she would never leave the boys.
Jennifer was a very sweet, heartfelt girl. Everybody liked Jennifer. My first thoughts were, well, maybe had she been in an accident, something had happened, because it just wouldn't be her just not show up or not contact her family.
My thoughts were probably the same as everyone else's. Something just didn't sound right.
But what? 5 days after Jennifer McCrady disappeared, the entire town is concerned, but police have no real leads.
We waited and waited, and we just wondered whether we were even going to, if they were ever going to be able to find her.
As the pressure mounts, dispatcher Moni Tanner, who took the first call from Jack McCrady, makes an unusual suggestion. She remembers Washington County had used a psychic from Pittsburgh to help on one of their cases a few years earlier.
Well, I figured we didn't have any leads, so what could it hurt to try? If she could help with the case and give us something to go on, we weren't going anywhere as it was. The detective did not want anything to do with it, but he said if I wanted to call, to go ahead and do it.
Everyone's looking to me to do something, make something happen. I have no leads. You end up sitting at the desk and you really don't know what you're going to do next. I want to use the training that I've been given to solve a crime. I didn't want to be embarrassed by looking at someone and says, well, I'm going to call a psychic. I just didn't want to be laughed at.
Georgia Rudolph, a psychic who was living in Pittsburgh, has been helping the police with cases for 20 years. It is a phone call that will change everything.
One of the first things she said to me was, we have a missing person. And I said, I'm going to tell you, she's not missing, she's dead. There's more to the human being than what you see. It's mind, body, spirit. Everybody has their own vibrational pattern. There have been cases where I have felt like I was almost a part of the situation. There have been other cases where I have felt that the deceased, it's never happened with a missing person because they're not going to get into my mind. The deceased has practically entered my mind or is standing right there. And they feed me the information. Or I feel like I'm experiencing what that person experienced at the end of their life. One of the ways I know if a person has passed is by the intensity of the vibration that I'm getting. If it's a low, more intense vibration, then they're still very much alive and on the earth. If it's a high-pitched vibration, then they've passed. This lady was dead.
When I learned the information, it creeped me out.
And Moni came back and said, you need to talk with Georgia. And the first day I said, no, I don't. Some people believe it, some people don't. So for probably maybe a day, I didn't call her.
5 days after Jennifer McCrady disappeared, Detective Garvey still has nothing. So against his better instincts, he calls the psychic.
In the conversation I had with Georgia on the phone, she said Jennifer was dead.
He said, are you sure? And I said, yes. And he said, what happened to her? She was shot in the back of the head once. Then he asked me, do you know who did this? And I said, yes. The man you are looking for would remind you of a lumberjack. His physique, not his face. He said, do you know what he does for a living? And I said, like a cop?
The detective's mind is racing. Could the psychic be talking about Jack McCrady? At 6'2" and 200 pounds, the cop is built like a lumberjack. But if Jennifer McCrady is dead, where is she?
I told them I don't know where she is, but I can tell you how to get there. I said, you want to get on the main road going outside of your town, and you stay on that road and you go south, and you're going to come to a town. It wasn't clear, but you're going to see a road. And the numbers to it are 298. And you're going to see a dirt gravel road that goes up. And you walk up that road, and you're going to find the body of Jennifer McCrady.
A psychic with no prior knowledge of the case has just told the detective that a heavily built cop killed Jennifer McCrady with a bullet to the head. She's also given him mysterious clues about where to find the body. Could the respected state trooper really have killed his wife? The word of a psychic is not enough for the detective.
South of town, 298. Had to look up. I really didn't know what that meant.
Then, 24 hours later, there's a call to the Belpri police station that will blow the investigation wide open.
The following Monday, after I talked with Georgia on the phone, a local citizen came to the office. They told me that they were south of town. They saw a state highway patrol car coming down a hill on Township 298. And she said, the look he gave me, you just need to look into that. And I knew the area that she was talking about, Torch, was south of town, near Township 298.
Could this be the trail the psychic described? The similarities are so strong that Garvey, still skeptical, decides to check it out. He drives south of Belpri on the road leading to Torch, Ohio. At Township Road 298, he finds an abandoned oil field road. This is the road where the caller had seen the trooper's car.
And unable to access the oil field road, you have to go up a hill. So if you actually went ahead and sat on 298 and looked up the oil field road, you're looking up a hill. I walked the road back probably 150 to 175 yards. I noticed what looked like to me a fresh grave. It was an area in size about 4 feet wide, 3 or 4 feet long. It was freshly dug, but it was very shallow. I thought about the possibilities. I went and I called Jeff Severs.
105 North Avenue, 52.
Jeff Severs is a detective at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. The road is in his jurisdiction. His first question, why is a trooper on a dirt road?
Troopers don't go off pavement, is our saying. The troopers stay on the pavement because they don't want to get their cars dirty. So when I heard that information, that's an immediate red flag up to me.
As both men head to what looks like a gravesite, Garvey tells Severs about the psychic's eerie visions.
I can recall talking with Jeff about what Georgia had said. And we both joked about it. Jeff took his fingers and just dug into the dirt. And he came up with a blue nylon slick surface. And we moved a little bit more dirt away, and we found a zipper. Local farmers do not put cows, pigs, hogs were dead animals in a zippered bag.
The zippered bag is, in fact, a sleeping bag. Fearing the worst, Sievers immediately cordons off the area and calls in the crime scene unit.
We dug into the point where we got to the sleeping bag, and then we slowly excavated around it until we, could unzip the sleeping bag and see that there was a human body. We uncovered and unzipped the bag. A white plastic bag had been placed over her head. We removed it. It was the body of Jennifer McCrady.
A missing persons case is now a homicide. The question is, how did Jennifer die?
She had a gunshot wound to her head.
It looked like it was a single shot to the right side of her head, just above her right ear, and it didn't look like there was an exit wound at that time. She was wearing a pink pajama bottom and a sleeping shirt.
And her feet were bare, and the bottom of her feet were clean. Common sense would say that she was shot at her house.
From the location of the body to the way she was killed, it seems the psychic was correct.
I never doubted it. Jennifer McCrady wanted to be found.
The doorbell rang about 2:30 in the morning, October 2nd. And it was the sheriff and the police, and they said, "We found her." It was a closure. To at least know, because sometimes people don't even get that.
At the highway patrol post in Marietta, Garvey delivers the bad news to Jennifer's husband.
Jack broke down, dropped his head, covered his eyes, and he sobbed and he cried. And I left the room for about 5 seconds, and I got him some towels to wipe his eyes. And I handed them to him, and he wiped his face, and he handed them back to me, and I looked down, they were bone dry.
Something else disturbing. McCrady never asks where his wife was found or how she was killed. Is he the cop the psychic said committed the crime? The detective now believes he is.
We talked to him and told him that he needed to tell us what had happened, and Jack just wouldn't say anything at all. And finally, he said he'd like to talk to a lawyer.
Jack McCrady is relieved of duty. The grieving husband is now the prime suspect.
We were investigating one of our own now for a murder, and it was really upsetting that it was not only his wife, but a mother of 2 small children.
He has some training. He knows how interviews work. He knows how tricks work when you talk to people. So you have to treat him differently.
Armed with a search warrant, investigators search the McCrady home and discover crucial evidence. Hidden in the ceiling rafters of the garage, they find all of Jennifer's personal belongings.
We also found a gun. That was a .357 Magnum gun, which could have been the caliber that was used to kill her. And somehow, someone had tampered with the barrel of the gun so that we couldn't match the bullet that was found in her head to that gun.
Also, out in a shed outside of the residence, we found a shovel. The dirt on it came back with the same consistency of the dirt found at the gravesite.
We never found a crime scene or a place where she was shot. But the evidence that we found in the house was very crucial.
3 days after finding Jennifer's body, police charged Jack McCrady with murdering his wife. He pleads innocent. 18 months later, on October 20th, the trial begins.
The prosecution of Jack McCrady was a circumstantial evidence case. There was no confession from Mr. McCrady. There was no eyewitness who was able to take the stand and describe for the jury how he or she saw the crime being committed. The case generated a very high level of attention in the community. First of all, again, the nature of the crime, the tragedy of a young mother being killed and the 2 children being without their mother. Added to that, the fact that the defendant was a law enforcement officer. And I think by and large in this community, law enforcement officers still have a fair amount of respect of the people. And this really shook that belief.
Yet the discovery of Jennifer's body allows the prosecution to argue that Jack has lied about his wife's disappearance from day one.
When the body was located, she was wearing the kind of things she would have worn to bed. It's not something that a woman would wear when she was running off for a rendezvous with a secret lover. That was obviously a crucial piece of evidence.
The trial also revealed that Jack lied about his marriage. A co-worker testified Jennifer had told her that she was planning to leave Jack and take the kids. The prosecution argued that on the night of September 19th, Jennifer and Jack fought over her decision. Jack wasn't going to let that happen. He took his gun, and while his kids slept in their room, he shot his wife in the back of the head. To catch any blood loss, he put a white plastic bag over her head. To move the body, he stuffed her inside a blue sleeping bag. Using her red blazer, he drove to the abandoned oil field road outside of town. His plan, they argued, was to bury her there temporarily. Later, he would return and move the body to a place where it would never be found. To create a false trail, he ditched the car at the Belpri Park and returned home to his 2 sleeping boys. The jury in Marietta, Ohio, deliberated for 14 hours before reaching its verdict. Guilty. Psychic Georgia Rudolph's amazing visions helped to put a cold-blooded killer behind bars.
Georgia's information made a world of difference. It solved the case.
Without that information and the resultant discovery of Jen's body, I don't think there would have even been a charge filed against Mr. McCrady. It would have been simply an unsolved missing persons case.
Following Georgia's guidelines or thoughts, whatever you want to say, led us to finding Jennifer. We found Jennifer. We found the bad guy. He goes to jail, and the family feels better.
A psychic's insight not only helped to solve this case, but helped to change some skeptics into believers.
People did not want to believe that Georgia could do it or a psychic could do it, but after it was over with, there was different feelings.
Not only did she say where the body would be discovered, she said she was dead before anyone else had reached that conclusion. And then she also said, and she described who had killed her, and then she said, and you might not want to hear this, but the person who killed her was a cop. And so all of those bits of information, I think, were remarkable. Now, looking back, it all, yeah, well, sure, everybody knows that. But when she made those statements, that was not something that most people believed.
There is some ironic coincidences there. When you talk about the name early in the investigation, that the man that killed Jennifer was a very strong, well-built man, and she actually used the name of a lumberjack, and ironically, Jack's name is Jack.
How Georgia Rudolph acquired the information, I have no idea. It is, I simply can't explain how she was able to provide that information, but thank goodness that she did.
From the beginning, Georgia never questioned her insights. For her, it was always about helping people.
I got a wonderful letter from the prosecuting attorney. He made it very clear to me that the people of Washington County owed me a debt of gratitude.
For Jennifer's mother, Finding her daughter's killer is what she hoped for, but it can't heal the heartbreak of losing a child.
If it hadn't have been for Georgia, we'd have never have gotten Jenny back. I don't know how they do it. It's just a special blessing, I guess, that they've got that they can do it. She's my very best friend. I talk to her. I still talk to her. People think I'm crazy, but nobody knows I'm talking to her. She can hear me, I'm sure.
This time on Psychic Investigators. In small-town Georgia, a man is murdered in his own bed.
It was a violent crime. It touched the very core of this community.
There are no witnesses and no murder weapon.
We didn't have much of anything.
But the family wants answers.
He didn't deserve this. Our family was desperate.
They call in psychic Phil Jordan. Can he find the killer among them?
I realize it's a woman. She's horrified herself she's doing it and amazed that she can do it.
Thomaston, Georgia, about an hour's drive from Atlanta. An old mill town that's seen better days. A sleepy little community where doors are left unlocked. That is, until one late summer day in 2002. 8:30 in the morning, September 9th, a neighbor arrives at Thomas Bragg's front door. Bragg, a roofer, has recently broken his leg in a fall. His neighbor has offered to take Bragg on some errands.
Mom!
When no one answers, the neighbor steps inside. In the bedroom, he makes a disturbing discovery.
When we arrived on the scene, Mr. Bragg was in the bed. He had the pillow over his face.
Sergeant Tim Ledbetter is the lead investigator.
He was tucked in the bed like somebody had placed him there.
But who? The killer? This is murder. Ledbetter calls the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for help. Special Agent Vaughn Estes immediately rules out robbery as the motive.
This doesn't look right. You've killed a man here in this room. You didn't take anything. You didn't disturb anything. Everything's still in its place.
This is TGA Action News. Mike Killerby reporting. A shocking discovery in Thomaston this morning. Police found the body of 46-year-old Thomas Bragg in his Fifth Avenue home. Police are asking anyone who has information about the case to call the Thomaston Police Department.
Tom's daughter from a previous marriage is stunned by the news.
My boss showed up and took me to my mother's house. Nobody would tell me anything. When I got to my mom's house, my mom told me what had happened to my dad. I was a daddy's girl. It was devastating.
Tom would do anything for anybody. He loved people. He was kind. I mean, Tom would give you the shirt off his back. He didn't deserve this.
Tom and his twin brother Tim ran a roofing company in Thomaston. Everyone knows them.
This case was a violent crime, and it touched the very core of this community. Everyone wanted closure to this case.
And they wanted answers.
someone walked right in the front door, killed a man in the bed, and walked right back out the front door, and no one could believe that that could happen in Thomaston. It's a quiet, sleepy little town.
But there was nothing quiet about Tom's marriage. His wife, Maryanne, had been meeting men on the internet.
Tim had been there earlier that day, and he said that they were fighting. My dad, he was pretty upset with the relationships that she had on the computer.
But they had always fussed and fought. They had never gotten along. So this was nothing new to me. I told Tim Ledbetter that Maryanne did not kill Tom, but I knew there was someone out there who did.
Anytime you have a husband killed in the marital home, the spouse is going to be one of your top suspects.
When Maryanne Bragg arrives home, she's informed of Tom's murder and taken in for questioning.
We took her into interview custody, towed her vehicle to check it out for any blood, any fibers.
But during that interview, something disturbing emerges. Maryanne is not acting like the grieving wife.
There was no concern. There was no talk of the funeral. There was no talk of who killed my husband. There was no talk of anything emotional. It was very cold. During the interview, I was not getting the impression that she was a grieving widow. I was getting the impression that she had just been happily divorced.
The clothes that she had on was sent to the crime lab.
Despite Maryanne's unusual behavior, police have little to go on. Her vehicle and clothes come back from the lab, and they're clean. Even her alibi checks out. She was in LaGrange, 30 miles away at her psychiatrist's. There is no hard evidence to tie Maryanne Bragg to her husband's death. Weeks go by. Tom's friends, family members, co-workers, and neighbors are interviewed and re-interviewed. But nothing. With no new information, the case is going nowhere fast.
There was always that hope that something new would turn up. A little bit of information that could be the glue to put a lot of puzzle pieces together.
Weeks turn to months, then years. The investigation goes stone cold.
2 years after the homicide, we still didn't have much of anything. I was more or less at my wit's end.
You want to bring closure for these people, and when you know, beyond any shadow of a doubt in your mind, you know who did it, you know why they did it, but when you move from that into the trial, you have to have something substantial, and that's where we were not at. You may get one bite at the apple and miss.
We called the police department every week, but after so long, you kind of grow used to, not having hope.
I felt like Tom's murder will never be solved. I have got to find someone to help with this case.
And then one night, she does. Tom's sister sees a television program about Phil Jordan, a psychic who has helped police on hundreds of unsolved cases.
A psychic had never crossed my mind in my life.
You hear so many horror stories about psychics, but we were desperate.
When Linda calls Jordan at his home in upstate New York, all he asks for is a photo of the victim. No other information.
When I work a police case, I take a picture of the person involved in the case, and I look at that picture and mentally perceive them as if it's like an intense daydream or a video going on in my head. Sometimes it moves rather slowly, but most of the time it moves very, very rapidly. It's very much like I'm walking with that person.
December 2004, Phil Jordan and Linda Hunt talk over the phone. Phil records the session. What he says next could reignite the case, but will the police listen?
Some sort of a blunt instrument, but having a sharp edge on one side of it.
Thomaston, Georgia. A man is bludgeoned to death in his own bed. After 2 years, the case is cold. Desperate for answers, the family contacts psychic Phil Jordan, who immediately zeroes in on the murder weapon.
Some sort of a blunt instrument, but having a sharp edge on one side of it. There's going to be a white one-story building. Maybe would have been doctor's offices or something of that nature. And it feels like there's got to be a man connected with that somehow has knowledge of or was involved in the commission of the crime.
A white building. A blunt object. What does it mean?
When I hung up that phone, I was on cloud 9. I knew we were fixing to get some help with Tom's murder.
Thomas was a twin, and I can't perceive anything like that happening to my twin or a sibling and having it be unresolved. So I felt, for Linda's sake as well as for Thomas's sake, I had to do what I could to help resolve this case.
But will the police take the word of a psychic seriously?
I wasn't comfortable talking with Phil. I was always taught the scientific way of doing a case. You know, going for the evidence, going for the fibers, going for the fingerprints. Someone that saw something that didn't see something, I never believed. But we heard several things that nobody else would have known about the case except for the ones that were working the case. We still felt that Maryanne was the key suspect, but still in 2004 we did not have the proper evidence to convict her, but we were still hopeful.
7825, code 6, 105 North Avenue.
Although skeptical, the police have nothing to lose. They decide to bring Jordan to Thomaston.
First place we went to was the location of the murder. No one had lived there since the murder.
7825, code 6.
We allowed Phil to be on his own. We let him guide us.
You immediately begin to feel the morbidity, the darkness of what happened there. My psychic self takes over, and I walk through the house as if the house is furnished, as if people are living there, as if I'm with them on the day and time that the crime took place.
He kept seeing dollar signs. He mentioned that the reason that Thomas was killed was a good possibility that the motive was for money. When Phil, he was giving us the impression of what he saw, he didn't know that we knew about the insurance policy. We didn't tell him that we knew about the insurance policy.
The police know that Maryanne took out a $25,000 life insurance policy 7 months before Tom's death. But that on its own isn't enough to build a case.
And to the left, there's a room that's intriguing to me. Psychically intriguing. There's something about that room. So I go in and I stand in the middle of the room and I realize this is where this man died.
He ended up taking us into the room where the murder had occurred without us even telling him where it was. He was able to tell us where the bed was laying, how Thomas was laying in the bed that nobody else knew about. It kind of hit home. It really did.
Now the psychic seems to be channeling the victim.
Suddenly I'm hit in the head. I can't move. This is somebody I knew, somebody that I loved. Why are they doing this to me?
Even more chilling. Now he becomes the killer.
I realize it's a woman. She's horrified herself. She's doing it and amazed that she can do it.
How the person was swinging the item. He gave us the picture of a hammer, where she might have stood. Nobody knew at the time other than us.
Suddenly I had this feeling that I've got to go to a different location. I leave the room, tell the detectives we've got to get in the car, and I will direct you to where we have to go.
He wanted to get in the car and drive. He said he had a strong feeling that he needed to take us somewhere.
I just wait and see why I'm going where I'm going.
He'd never been here before in his life, didn't know the town, didn't know the streets. He told me to start turning at certain roads.
Now we have to go 2 blocks. We'll turn left. I say we have to go to the end of the street. And turn right.
We turn into a driveway, and I guess this is when I get cold chills, just thinking about looking back over it. At the same time I was getting cold chills then.
There's something about that apartment that is connected to this crime.
In Thomaston, Georgia, psychic investigator Phil Jordan is helping the police find the killer of Thomas Bragg. Jordan leads them to a house. But why this one?
We turned into a driveway, which was an apartment complex. We pulled right in front of Maryanne Bragg's front door, where Maryanne Bragg was living at this time. How?
And I tell them the second apartment from the end is psychically intriguing to me. There's something about that apartment that is connected to this crime, and there is no doubt in my mind.
That was just amazing.
Without being told anything, Jordan has taken the cops straight to their original prime suspect's new home. They are convinced now, more than ever, that Maryanne Bragg killed her husband. Before leaving Thomaston, Jordan offers the police more intriguing psychic clues.
I sense copper, Louisiana, Texas, when I left Georgia, they said this case is going to end in conviction, and I knew that it would be resolved.
Then, a few weeks later, the cryptic clues, copper, Louisiana, and Texas, become clear. When an anonymous phone tip leads the police to Maryanne's best friend.
And her name was Penny Carter. So we thought, copper, Penny. And when we started looking for Miss Carter, she was no longer in Georgia.
When they first interviewed Penny after the murder, she said nothing. Now, guided by Phil Jordan, the police track her down in Beaumont, right on the Texas-Louisiana border.
Phil was on the track again. We were probably less than 30 miles from the Louisiana border and on the other side of Texas where we located her. We took her to one of the local police departments where we sat down and interviewed her.
She drops a bombshell.
Penny had been told by Maryanne, not on one occasion, but 2 occasions, that she had killed Thomas.
Phil Jordan's extraordinary insights and Penny Carter's explosive new information reignite the case.
Take everyone's case file, everyone's interview, and categorize everything and get everything in a workable order, and then see what you have.
Investigators re-examine Maryanne's alibi for the time of the murder, a psychiatric appointment in LaGrange. Maryanne's psychiatrist has steadfastly refused to break doctor-patient confidentiality.
White, one-story building, maybe would have been doctor's offices. Got to be a man connected with that somehow has knowledge of the crime.
But could the psychic be right? Does the key to this case lie in his session notes with Maryanne on the morning of the murder?
We were able to get the judge to issue the search warrant. We thought the information that was involved was more important than the patient confidentiality. And we were right.
That was a pivotal piece of information. She's reporting to her psychiatrist, my husband's dead before the body's been discovered.
I thought she was telling me the truth, and I believed her for a long time.
Maryanne Bragg is arrested on November 7th, 2005. 10 months later, the trial begins.
Miss Bragg, did you kill your husband?
No, sir.
The prosecution argues that Maryanne Bragg struck her husband repeatedly on the left side of the head with a blunt instrument, covered his head with a pillow, and left for her doctor's appointment in LaGrange. As the trial unfolds, it becomes clear that Phil Jordan's visions were dead on. First, the cryptic connection to copper when Penny Carter tells the court what Maryanne told her.
What would you do or say if I killed Tom?
Did you go to the police?
No, I didn't. I was scared.
Then, the doctor's notes from the morning of Tom Bragg's murder.
Did Maryanne Bragg see Dr. Andrews that day?
The notes say that she did.
Heath English is the assistant district attorney.
The doctor's log indicated when he met with Maryanne, she was quite upset. The reason for her state that morning was that her husband had been found dead. At that point in time, no one had contacted Maryanne Bragg.
And finally, the motive.
The main motive in this particular case was money.
After a 4-day trial, Maryanne Bragg is found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Her lawyers immediately file an appeal.
When talking to people, and they ask me who is the most cold and diabolical and ruthless person I've ever encountered, I say the name Maryanne Bragg.
Without the visions of psychic Phil Jordan, the evidence leading to her conviction may never have been found. How did he see what no one else could?
I think many times people's skepticism allows them to close a door that they may have wished could have been left open.
Her statements to Penny, the statements made to the doctor, helped bring everything together. And without those two, to this day, I don't think you have a complete picture.
Dealing with Phil throughout this case, it opened my mind to think more outside the box.
Phil Jordan, with the help of the detectives, I give all the credit to. Phil Jordan is my hero.
this time on psychic investigators. When a young man goes missing, police suspect foul play.
There's no reason for him to run away.
They have a suspect, but no body.
The family was in shock.
A detective turns to a psychic for help. Her visions reveal an unimaginable evil.
And now she's telling me there are multiple victims.
Can a psychic help the police capture one of the worst killers in U.S. history? John Wayne Gacy. Des Plaines, Illinois. A byway for commuters who make the daily trek into nearby Chicago. A far cry from the crime and violence of the big city. Or so it seemed. On December 11th, 1978, high school student Robert Piest is finishing his shift at a local drugstore. His mother arrives to pick him up. Robert asks her to wait a few minutes while he goes to the parking lot at the back of the building to meet a man about a summer job. He never returns. The family files a missing persons report that night. It lands on the desk of Chief of Detectives Joe Kozensak.
The statement was made that this young man was going to talk to another unknown person about some summer work. Here's a young man who all of a sudden disappears. The family was in shock.
Robert, a student at West Main High School, is popular, a gymnast, an aspiring photographer.
Rob was a good guy. He was funny, creative. He was a good friend.
He's doing well in school. He's social. He's a great kid. There's no reason for him to run away.
And when you start adding these things together, there's more to this than just a young man who walked away from his part-time job.
3 days go by, and still no sign of Robert.
All of the speculation as to what could have happened started coming out. It was evident to all of us that something was very, very wrong. Posters were put out all over the place. We were all calling each other all the time. Is there any word? Is there any word? We were anxious.
It was a really emotional time because a lot of these people were in fear of being harmed or murdered, that maybe they would be the victim.
With no other lead, they turned their attention to the man Robert told his mother he was going to meet.
He was actually a person who was, in fact, brought into this drugstore by the owners to do certain kinds of remodeling work.
All police have is the contractor's first name and a last name they're not sure how to spell.
The Chicago Police Department had, at that time, an alpha file. If you didn't know how to spell someone's name, but you kind of had the pronunciation of it, you could look in this file. This is not computers. I'm talking about literally taking your little fingers and going through the cards. Based on that information, they actually came up with a name. His name was John Wayne Gacy.
At first glance, John Wayne Gacy is a model citizen. He belongs to local service clubs. He entertains children as Pogo the Clown. But he also has a dark side. Gacy has a prior arrest in Iowa for a violent sexual assault.
And when we heard that, the hair literally stood up on the back of our necks. While I was attempting to get a search warrant, other officers were interviewing Gacy. Once he found out we did not have a search warrant, he got real belligerent. He denied ever talking or seeing Robert. We felt he wasn't telling us the truth.
24 hours later, the search warrant comes through.
On our first search warrant, we found IDs that belonged to other young men, jewelry and
belt buckles and different things that didn't belong to Gacy. And we found all kinds of other types of sexually orientated materials, books and magazines and things. Even though we had these items, there was nothing there that would allow us to arrest Gacy. We had to cut him loose. That was painful for me because I felt that this man was responsible for the disappearance of this young man.
But tracing the IDs will take time. And with Robert missing 5 days, the detective is at a dead end. A fellow officer suggests something radical. A psychic.
I decided I would ask the police chief what he thought about that idea. And he said, don't advertise it, but go ahead and do it.
Kozensak makes an appointment with the psychic in nearby Rolling Meadows for that very night. Carol Broman, now deceased, was a well-respected psychic investigator who worked with police on many cases.
She would get feelings by touching either a person or an object. She would pick up energy. She also called it her little voice.
I mean, it was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was kind of an eerie night.
We had a room upstairs where my mom did her readings. She called it her library. Joe had gone into the room with my mom and shut the door. I noticed that he was very, very nervous, very guarded.
I sat down in this little room with her all her candles burning. She said, did you bring anything that belonged to this young man?
The detective has brought Robert's camera in the hopes the psychic can use it to locate him. He has also brought a tape recorder to document the session.
She took the camera into her hands, and immediately you could tell that she was feeling something extraordinary.
I'm getting sick to my stomach. There's some type of torture. He isn't alive.
The psychic said this young man is dead. And I was like, I mean, the chill just ran through me from my head to my feet.
There's a construction site affiliated with this man. He asked him to come back or to meet him somewhere. He was tricked somehow. The kid doesn't think he's dead. He's got marks where he was tied.
A construction site. Could the psychic be talking about John Wayne Gacy? But it's what she sees next that shakes the detective to his core.
This guy is sick. I mean, he's really sick. You're going to find 6 or 7 others in the same place. They're buried.
I was dealing with this one missing persons case, and now she's telling me there's more. She said there are multiple victims.
When Joe had left that night and my mom came out of the room, she just was very upset. She was very white. She said that she had felt sick to her stomach.
And the part that really got to me was when she said, Robert doesn't know he's dead. And that bothered me a lot. I envisioned Robert wandering off in the Netherlands someplace.
The detective has more questions than answers. But his biggest problem? How is he going to explain all this to his men?
I try to maintain my cop state of mind because you don't want to be duped. How do you tell this information to your investigators? You know, do you go back to the police station and say, I just saw a psychic, and here's what she said?
Kozenczak tells his men the psychic's information came from an anonymous tip. The investigation into John Wayne Gacy kicks into high gear.
Gacy was under 24-hour-a-day surveillance by a team of officers. And then you had policemen who were interviewing former employees of Gacy's.
Police discover some of these employees are missing, and they make a crucial link. These names are among the ID cards seized in their first search.
Here's 3 or 4 or 5 ex-employees of Gacy's mysteriously disappeared.
Could they be dead? Kozenczak remembers the psychic's visions. Multiple bodies buried.
That's when it just started to come together for us.
Meanwhile, Gacy knows he's being watched. Far from being afraid, he seems to enjoy the attention. He even invites the police to dinner in his house. One officer notes a strange smell coming from the basement. 48 hours later, the round-the-clock surveillance pays off when Gacy slips up.
The surveillance team that was following Gacy watched him sell some marijuana to a gas station attendant. So they grabbed him.
With Gacy in custody and armed with evidence of more missing men, the police obtain a second search warrant. They believe the key to the missing men may lie in the house with the strange smell. They start in the basement.
I went to the house, and I opened the door, and I stood in the dark, right by the trap door. And 2 Cook County Sheriff's evidence technicians jumped down into this trap door. Within minutes, they said, Lieutenant, we've got 3 bodies down here. And I was like, oh my God, it's true. Everything's true.
What they find is a house of horrors. Multiple bodies buried in the basement. Every day, the body count rises. In custody, Gacy provides the grim details of how he tortured his victims. His weapon of choice, a garrote, which he used to strangle them. Of the 27 bodies unearthed, some still have rope around their neck. The multiple bodies, the M.O. It seems the psychic was right about it all.
It fit very, very closely to what Carol said. And the amazing thing is, we didn't know this. She told us.
News of the gruesome discovery spreads like wildfire.
It turned into a media circus. There were news people there from all over the world.
When they were taking the bodies out of Gacy's house, it was surreal. How can there be so many bodies in this house and nobody know it?
Todd Wessel covers the story for the local paper.
As the day unfolded and the week unfolded, the horror just became almost unimaginable.
The police examine the bodies, but Robert Piest is not among them.
It was obvious to us that the condition of the bodies that were underneath this house had been there a long, long time. We still had not accomplished finding Robert's body.
Impressed by Carol Broman's revelations, the police ask her to help locate Robert's body. But she can't see where he is. The police are at another dead end.
Everybody believed that they were going to find him, and they didn't.
There was a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty in the minds of the community. People wondered what happened to Robert. Where was he? Could he still be alive?
The police are sure Piest is dead. But where is his body?
As each day went by, it got worse and worse because there was no answer, nothing for us to hang on to. It was very important they find the body.
The police and the family finally get their answer. John Wayne Gacy admits to killing Robert Piest and tells how he disposed of the body.
Gacy told us that he had thrown Robert's body into a river.
He says he threw the body off the I-55 bridge into the Des Plaines River. The area is searched, but with no luck. By now, the current could have taken Piest's body anywhere. And there's another problem.
It was just hard to observe anything in the river because the river was frozen. We had to wait.
But it's been 6 weeks since their son disappeared, and the family doesn't want to wait. Elizabeth Piest reads an article in Reader's Digest about a psychic whose specialty is finding missing bodies. Dorothy Allison, who is now deceased.
Dorothy Allison was quite prominent as a psychic on the East Coast and was in fact involved with the FBI working on a case. Robert's mother asked me to contact Dorothy Allison to see if she might come to Chicago to help search for her son's body.
Detective Kozensak contacts the psychic at her home in Nutley, New Jersey.
She immediately started telling me where Robert's body was located at. I was very skeptical.
Your victim's body is located near a place where there's a strong smell of petroleum oil. I'm seeing a motel. The Manor Motel. I'm seeing the body near a cemetery. The sign says Evergreen.
Now that was good. And this woman was sitting in New Jersey, and she's telling me about a Manor Motel.
Oil. The Manor Motel. Evergreen Cemetery. Obscure landmarks near where Gacy dumped the body. Intrigued, the detective asks the psychic to come in person to zero in on the location. In March, Detective Kozensak drives Dorothy Allison to the area. The psychic first guides them off the highway.
As you come off the interstate, there are storage tanks. And if you roll your windows down, I mean, you're like inundated with the smell of petroleum.
The psychic directs him to take another exit.
The exit you get off is a Manor Motel. And off to my left was a cemetery. And there was a great big marble slab in the front of this place. And it said, Evergreen.
The psychic asks the detective to stop the car and points to an area along the river where she believes the body will be found. But with the water still frozen, the search must wait. Dorothy Allison returns to New Jersey on another case, but not before one last prediction.
She wrote something down on this piece of paper, and she said, "This is the day you're going to find Robert and I stuck it in my folder, closed it, put it in a desk drawer, and essentially forgot about it.
The spring thaw, and the search for Robert Piest can begin again. Out of the blue, the detective gets a phone call.
And it was the sheriff of Grundy County, and he said, "Lieutenant, you better get down here. We found a body floating along the shore of the river." The location where Robert's body had finally been found was just about a quarter-mile away from the cemetery.
The psychic not only predicted where Robert would be found, but also when. Detective Kozensak remembers the note.
And it said April 9th. What she predicted in January actually came true to the letter on April 9th of 1979.
Dorothy Allison's last prediction bears out. The body of Robert Piest can finally be returned to his loved ones.
That was an answer. After all of that time, that was at least something.
At that point, I got sad. He really was gone. And Gacy really did kill him.
More questions are answered during John Wayne Gacy's sensational trial, and the psychic's visions prove eerily accurate. On the night of December 11th, Robert Piest went to meet with Gacy about a summer job. The prosecution case was that Gacy lured Robert to his home, where he entertained him with a set of trick handcuffs from his clown act. Once Robert was comfortable getting in and out of them, Gacy upped the ante. He cuffed Robert's hands behind his back and told him to try again. But this time, he adjusted the catch. Robert was trapped. He then tortured and sexually abused him and strangled him with a garrote. On March 7th, 1980, John Wayne Gacy is convicted on 33 counts of murder, including Robert Piest's. On May 10th, 1994, after years of appeals, Gacy is executed by lethal injection. Without the help of psychics Carol Broman and Dorothy Allison, one of America's worst serial killers may never have been stopped. And Robert Piest, never found.
I thought my mom's contribution to the Piest case was that she pretty much solved it.
Actually, I became a believer in psychics. If you can give some form of comfort and peace to the family of someone who went missing, and you can do that by using a psychic, then you do it.
This time on Psychic Investigators, a young woman is abducted in broad daylight.
Where is she? Who has her?
Police think it could be murder.
There was blood on the handgun.
But no one knows for sure.
You could hear the buzzing before we saw the fly.
Until a psychic relives the crime.
That's when she leaped into my body. She was so terrified.
Will the psychic help to solve the mystery of what happened to the flower girl? Denton, Texas, on the outskirts of Dallas-Fort Worth, a university town. A town that likes to party, where booze and bars can sometimes mean trouble, like the trouble that erupted late afternoon, July 1st, 1996.
A girl that I know was kidnapped. Big white burly guy in a black late model Chevy pickup. You saw that? Yes. I took off with her. Just about 5 minutes ago.
You'd get calls like this basically every weekend when the bars were open to 2 a.m. in the morning. The two witnesses, patrolmen, saw that both of them had been drinking and didn't believe what they said and thought possibly that it was just a domestic disturbance.
The witnesses know the woman they saw kidnapped. She's 36-year-old Diana Goldston, a local photographer who also makes extra money selling roses in the clubs and bars around Denton. People call her the Flower Girl.
She would give her shirt off of her back to you if she felt you needed it more than she did.
Diana is also a part-time bartender at the Red Derby, the location of the abduction.
The owner of the Red Derby called and said that something had happened to my sister.
I got a call from my daughter. She said that Diana was taken from the street and kidnapped.
The witnesses gave the police the license plate number of the truck. They trace it to the address of Carrie Griffin, ex-wife of John Robert, J.R. Griffin, a known felon from California on parole.
Very, very strong, very muscular guy. He scared people.
A rookie detective is sent out to question J.R. Griffin's ex-wife. Carrie Griffin says that her ex-husband had been at the house on the day in question, and he had a woman with him. From Carrie's description, the detective assumes the woman is Diana Goldston.
Wrote in his report she was with J.R. Griffin and appeared okay.
Satisfied that it may be a simple domestic dispute, the police put the case to one side. But it was not okay. 10 days go by, and still no word from Diana. Her mother desperately wants answers.
They weren't taking it seriously, and I said, she's missing, she's gone. Something's wrong. Please help me.
The police revisit the case, and Detective Dave Stewart is put in charge.
They'd already started it in motion and talked to a few people, but then when I came in, we started having to interview all the other witnesses.
Also assigned to the case, Detective Kenny Kirkland re-interviews Carrie Griffin. His experience tells him she knows more than she's saying.
Indeed, that was not the whole truth, that there was more to the story.
Kirkland gets her to admit that she was scared of her ex-husband and that the woman with JR wasn't Diana Goldston, but his girlfriend, Jeanette Cox.
That Jeanette Cox was there with him, that Diana Goldston was not, and that J.R. Griffin had blood on him.
The story Carrie Griffin tells breaks the case wide open. Carrie Griffin says JR asked her neighbor for help. The truck was stuck at the lake. The lake is Lake Ray Roberts, a heavily wooded 6,000-acre state park just outside of Denton. What was JR doing up there? And why did he have blood on his shirt? The neighbor takes Kirkland to the spot where JR was stuck.
When we first walked up to the area, we could see a jacket hanging in a tree that had blood on it. We could see the trail where a body was dragged. You could hear the buzzing before we saw the flies. And the blowflies were just all on the top of it. They're also called death flies. There was a pool of blood and body fluids. There was lots of blood there.
The police bring in dogs trained at detecting human remains.
Cadaver dogs hit on that area that we were. They hit on the jacket.
They gather the evidence at Lake Ray Roberts and compare it to DNA from Diana Goldston.
We matched all of these things to the blood that was on the ground, to DNA that we had gathered from Diana Goldston's hair that she left in a brush at her house.
And it all matches.
We knew that that's where Diana had been before he moved her.
Even without her body, the police are now convinced the Flower Girl is dead.
I went out in my backyard and screamed and yelled and cried and talked to God. But it really didn't help. She was gone.
Warrants are issued. In J.R. Griffin's house, the police find a shotgun and a .38 revolver. Traces of blood are found on the revolver. In the pickup truck, the police also find trace elements of blood.
We were able to get DNA from that, which would match us up to Dinah Goldston.
In the state of Texas, without a body, police cannot lay a murder charge. But they do have enough evidence to charge J.R. Griffin and his girlfriend Jeanette Cox with aggravated kidnapping. But where is Diana Goldston? And what exactly happened to her? All of Denton wants to know. The police drag the lake. There's a massive ground search.
It was very emotional for the whole town as well as the police department. We wanted justice. All of us did. We left no stone unturned.
And still, nothing. Weeks, then 3 months go by, and with J.R. and his girlfriend not talking, the police are at a dead end. A colleague suggests a psychic who had worked with police in a nearby county.
Police officers are cynical by nature, and we don't believe anything that anybody tells us, much less a psychic that tells you things from the dead or from other places.
Despite his skepticism, the detective gives the psychic a call.
He wanted to know if I would be willing to work on this young woman who was missing. And he said, would you be willing to come to Denton, Texas?
Carol Pate has worked with police around the U.S. on many cases. She uses a method she calls psychometry.
That's holding an object, a photograph. It's kind of like tuning in a radio station for me. Once I've got that signature frequency of that individual, then I can become one with them. So I'm sort of them for that time frame. Then I can see and feel and know.
But will the psychic be able to see what happened to the flower girl?
Pretty much floored all of us. We were shocked. Thank you.
A woman abducted outside a Texas bar has been missing for weeks, presumed dead. Police bring in psychic Carol Pate from her home in Arkansas. Can she see what the police cannot?
We were very frustrated, but we needed some closure for the family and for us in the police department.
In the squad room, the detectives put the psychic to the test.
We did not give Carol Pate any information whatsoever. We figured if she was truly who she said she was, that she would be able to do these things. We got together several pictures, and some of them were people not involved in the crime, and some were people involved in it. We had not released any of the pictures of people in the press.
So I did each photograph. The girl was scared to death. She was murdered.
All of us in the room were just silent.
This one is the murderer. He was heavy into drugs and that he had zero conscience, none. This one is his girlfriend. And she was there at the time of the murder.
We were shocked for the fact that she was able to take just pictures and tell us what each person did and what their part was in that crime. She just reaffirmed that. I don't know of anybody that can do that.
What else can the psychic see? Without telling her anything, Detective Kirkland drives Carol to the scene of the abduction, the parking lot of the Red Derby Bar.
This young girl, I saw her in front of a nightclub, and she sold flowers. This was where I felt a lot of violence here. This was where the abduction took place. He believed this girl had stolen money from him.
Where's my money?
She was so terrified. And then that's when she leaped into my body. I was going through the struggle that she was going through. and all of a sudden, I'm shot.
She said she could feel it, just like as if she was Diana Goldston. I can feel the searing heat. I can feel that I'm bleeding. That is a possibility. The two witnesses, I remembered that they said a shot had been fired, but no one had said that Diana Goldston was shot. We were going down toward the lake. As we drove by one area, she said, this part here has something to do with Diana Goldston.
Still channeling the spirit of Diana, the psychic calls out directions as she claims to relive Diana Goldston's last moments.
She's bleeding heavily, and I look to either side of me, and I see a woman, and I see a man to my left side, and these people are fighting her and holding her.
She said, I can feel what Diana Goldston feels. They're hitting me, and they're keeping me down, and I'm begging for my life.
And she said, turn to the right. Here, turn left.
She leads the detective to Lake Ray Roberts.
She said, this is where it occurred. This is where Diana Goldston lost her life. This lake is huge. Lake Ray Roberts is a big place. And to be able to narrow it down to one place, it's pretty astounding.
I feel the man and the girl taking her out of the truck.
Go.
There's a jacket, and he takes it off, and he throws it on a limb in a tree.
Shocked that she was able to do that.
And I saw him dragging my body through the woods. And they just lay me down. And I guess they thought I was gonna just bleed to death there. And they walk away. And then I feel them coming back. And the man, he stomps my throat with his big boot. I die.
How could the psychic know so much? Carol Pate not only confirmed where police believe Diana Goldston died, but she offers insight into how she died.
I can't explain that.
Forensics have given some of the details in the case, but with J.R. Griffin and Jeanette Cox saying nothing, Carol Pate is the only one to paint a full picture of Diana's last moments alive.
Carol left me some drawings that depicted where she believed Diana Goldston had been taken and laid down a final resting place.
There was some graffiti close to a bridge, and the graffiti, that was done like in red. That S was like in red. And there was a cross, and then that Y, and there was this barrel, and I felt like she at one point was placed either in the barrel or around this barrel. Basically, when I draw these pictures, it's what I'm seeing in my head, what the picture that flashes in my head, period. and I try to transpose that picture in my head onto the piece of paper. And I try to get as much detail as possible.
But 5 months after the Flower Girl's abduction, there's still no sign of Diana's body. The trial of J.R. Griffin begins. He pleads not guilty.
He believed that the police could not touch him, that he was invincible, that nobody could get him. Everything that we gathered together was a circumstantial case, but it was a good enough case because we'd pieced it together.
Leanne Breeding is the prosecutor.
Our goal was to get him convicted and have him spend as much time in the penitentiary as the law allowed. Without a body, it's hard to prove an exact cause of death that stands up on appeal. And so you take the route where you think you have the better case for the evidence. In this case, it was the aggravated kidnapping.
To the end, J.R. Griffin maintains his innocence. But the jury finds him guilty, and he's sentenced to 40 years.
In Texas, juries decide the punishment. And for him to be sentenced to life imprisonment on an aggravated kidnapping case, that's the most he could get.
You know, instead of being just this flower girl that he swatted away, suddenly now she was important to the jury. And it was this one person he wasn't even afraid of and thought couldn't do anything that put him behind bars permanently.
We asked him again if he would just tell us where she was, that we would not pursue murder charges and he could not get the death penalty in the state of Texas. We wanted to find the body of Diana Goldston to add some closure to her family. And his response to myself and David Stewart at that time was that you will never find the body of Diana Goldston.
With J.R. Griffin in prison and his girlfriend Jeanette Cox saying nothing while she awaits her trial, the police have only the visions of a psychic to explain how Diana died. But that was about to change.
I remembered what Carol Pate told me. I remembered it all. It indeed did come to be true.
In Denton, Texas, J.R. Griffin has been found guilty of the abduction of Diana Goldston. The police are sure she's dead, but J.R. won't reveal what happened or where her body is.
So about 3 o'clock, I wrote J.R. a letter while he was in prison to tell me what he did with Diana, and he wrote me an 11-page letter back, kind of called me a bunch of names, and keeps denying it. He won't talk about it. He keeps saying it's somebody else that did it.
I think J.R. Griffin is one of the most evil men you would ever meet. Any man that has the ability to put closure for a family and he just totally ignores them, he's evil.
I even wrote to Griffin in prison. In his letters to me, he said, I'll probably die in here, and I thought, good. He denied everything, saying his friend Cox knew more than she was telling.
Then, 2 years after the abduction, an unexpected development, and the mystery of how Diana died is finally solved. In exchange for a reduced sentence and no trial, Griffin's accomplice talks.
Jeanette told us everything that we didn't know because she was actually there. And she gave details that only a person that was present would know what happened.
So he was wanting to go to Denton and told me he had to collect some money. And he just a couple days beforehand, he mentioned about someone stealing his wallet.
Hey, you, where's my money?
J.R. killed the wrong person because it was all over $400 that someone had taken out of his wallet. It wasn't Diane that stole the money, but she died as a result of something else that somebody else did.
Diana Goldston had never done anything to J.R. Griffin. She died for nothing.
And he just yanked her up and started shoving her towards the truck. At that time, I hear the gun go off, and I'm very scared. And he says, get her in the truck.
Get her in there. And my reaction was just that I've heard this before from Carol.
Shot. All I can't remember anymore of the trip because I'm struggling with her to keep her down. He's telling me to keep her down. I punched her once or twice, maybe 3 times.
I'd heard this also from Carol Pate. She told me this is what happened.
And then when he got to the lake where he dumped her,
I helped him lift her legs up. She's still breathing. I was walking back to the truck, and out the corner of my eye, I see him drag her up further under the tree area, and it looked like he stepped on her neck. Just kind of smashed it like a cigarette butt. And I acted like I didn't see him. I'm afraid.
What this does, it sets the wheels in motion. If we ever find Diana,
J.R. Griffin can and most likely will be tried for murder and be put to death.
But can she tell the police where to find Diana's body and seal J.R. Griffin's fate?
Do you have any idea where she may be?
No.
For making the deal, Jeanette Cox receives a sentence of 20 years in prison. Eerily, Jeanette's account closely mirrors the psychic's visions of the crime. And what about Carol Pate's drawings of Diana's burial place? Detective Kenny Kirkland is hopeful.
Carol Pate had gotten several things right in dealing with this case. And so I've kept those drawings, so when we do find the body, I want to be able to compare it to what Carol drew on this paper.
It is probably one of the harder things to do, is to locate a body, because that energy is dead. The physical energy is dead. So I'm having to pick up on the remnants of what was there psychically.
Carol Pate obviously has some special gifts to be able to do things that a normal person cannot do. She was able to tell us things about this case she knew nothing about. It was pretty phenomenal that she was able to do that.
For Detective Dave Stewart, the case never closed.
I need to find Diane before I retire. That is my one goal in life, I hope, as an officer, is to put this case to rest.
I would love for my mother and my daughter and me to have a place to go and pay our respects to her. That would be amazing.
I wanted a body, you know, I wanted a funeral. I wanted a place that I could go talk to her instead of her picture.
I feel Diana will eventually be found given time. I know that the family needs closure. They need to be able to say goodbye. And who knows, maybe I'll have a part in it.